This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 90, where we are starting on our Iron Fist journey. Season 1, episode 1, Snow Gives Way. Welcome to the podcast, Defenders. We're back, not it's back, we're back for Snow Gives Way, the first episode of the new Marvel Netflix show, Iron Fist, rounding out the Defenders. The fourth one arrives in Manhattan after a long wander by foot, in bare feet, to the greatest metropolis on Earth. I am one of your hosts, John.
I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
And rounding out the group, I'm Chris.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Absolutely.
Is it not Happy St. Danny's Day?
Well, it's the day of old Danny Boy.
Yeah, Danny Boy. The pints of Guinness are flowing.
Well, I've heard of green Guinness, so like pretty much if you can get a green and white Guinness, you can pretty much celebrate both Iron Fist and St. Patrick's Day all in one go.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the episodes are being released at 7 a.m. on St. Patrick's Day. We're recording a little bit ahead of time. Thanks so much to Netflix UK and Ireland for providing us with our preview copies. But yes, you hopefully will be listening to us on St. Patrick's Day. And as an Irish-based podcast, that's kind of cool.
That is very cool. And in fact, water is not into wine, but into Guinness, with a nice, creamy, frothy top.
Absolutely. So while it is 7 o'clock in the morning, we're not drunk just yet. We might be getting a St. Patrick's Day pint later on. But
we might be slurring our words as we move through the podcast, obviously. And of course, the pronunciation of some of the names might go to pot.
You never know.
Including our own.
Come on. Exactly. It'd be like, one. That means you, John. As we get to like episode 6, 7, we're going to be like just slashed.
That is true. Yes, and so yeah, it's the fourth Defender. He's arrived on Netflix, and of course we're gonna be getting into our episode here. Just in advance to any new listeners who have joined us for Iron Fist, and of course to all of those who are returning, welcome to the podcast. Just in advance of this, we will be giving our 5 points. But this time, not each individual 5 points. We have merged them into a single massive 5 points.
Yes.
That we will deliver on this episode, Snow Gives Way. And of course we're starting St. Patrick's Day, as we've said, but we will be bringing new episodes every Tuesday and Friday then of each week, and of course we watch them as we go. We don't watch ahead, and that is coming from our Lord and Master Obenführer Derek. And so so we will be getting into this. Episode 3 review will be out then on the 21st of March, and our episode 2 will then be on the 18th of March, if I've got that right.
I think so. We're obviously recording these one at a time as we go. As John mentioned, we watch the episode, we record our podcast. So we've only watched episode 1 and we're just recording the podcast for episode 1. We'll record episode 2 as soon as we possibly can and hopefully have that out over the weekend. And then we'll go into our normal pattern of Tuesday and Friday for release of episodes. So hopefully you can stay with us for all of the episodes. Watch them as you want to, and you can jump in and out of our podcast as you watch the episodes. And before we go any further, these are spoiler-filled reviews of Iron Fist, so make sure you've seen episode 1, season 1 of Iron Fist before you listen any further in the episode. Make sure you don't get spoiled, and then episode 2, you'll have to have watched that before the next one afterwards. So
yeah, and of course, as always, it's important for us to let you know where you can catch us and subscribe. So please, if you want to hear all things Iron Fist and of course the Defenders, please subscribe and listen on iTunes at www.defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes. Or of course you can go to any other yin or yang podcast catcher, and just search Defenders TV podcast.
Nice.
So guys, if you have any feedback for any of our shows, be it episode 90 or any of the previous 89, obviously we want you to go back and binge listen as you're waiting for the next episode. You can just go to our website and leave a short voice piece of feedback. It's up to about 30 seconds, and that's obviously on DefendersTVPodcast.com, or you can go to any of our social media sites. So we're on Twitter's at DefendersCast, or we have our fabulous group over on Facebook where a lot of us and other fans kind of sit down and we talk everything Defenders. So come over and join us. So that's groups/Defenders TV podcast. And there we'll basically catch up on, we leave the episode 90 will be out there on the day one, and you'll be able to kind of give us your feedback on that. And as we progress through our recording, we'll put up a post where you can leave all your spoilery thoughts. Or if you just have a general question or anything like that, feel free just to jump in and put a post up. And our lovely director of Defenders TV podcast, Derek, will either decide or break it down in terms of if you can have the say there. We're not saying he's like the Red Skull. He's more a mix between Robert Redford in Winter Soldier. I think that's a good one. You're good, but you're also bad. We're not sure.
I like it. My resume from this show is extending every season. We've got co-host, producer, director, and Obenführer. Very impressive. Thank you, gentlemen.
Put that on your CV. I'm pretty sure you'd get a few eyebrows raised.
I like it. I think it's time to get into the podcast proper. Guys, are you ready to get into
Absolutely.
Iron Fist Season 1, Episode 1? Snow Gives Way. Well, this episode was written by the showrunner Scott Buck, who has done shows previously like 6 Feet Under and Dexter, but he has also been confirmed by Marvel as the showrunner for Inhumans, the new show coming up from ABC Studios that makes all of the Marvel shows from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. all the way through to the Defenders. He's going to be the showrunner for that. This is a co-production with IMAX. If you haven't heard us talk about it before, they're going to be doing the first 2 episodes in IMAX theaters, followed by a TV series of about 8 episodes, we believe, which will be coming out in about September this year, I think. So he's been very busy, man, to have 2 full TV shows as showrunner and writing some of the episodes like this one. The episode was directed by John Dahl, who worked on Billions with former Daredevil cast member Toby Leonard Moore, which I thought was quite cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and he also directed a slightly controversial Defenders TV podcast episode of Jessica Jones, the fantastic aka Sin Bin episode 9 of Jessica Jones. So interesting that they're also bringing on board a former director of the Defenders TV shows to direct this episode. That's quite cool.
Absolutely. It's getting all very incestuous over at Marvel Netflix.
Yeah, they've got a huge pot to pull from now. Lots of people that have written for the shows now and directed the shows. I'm really hoping once we get to Defenders that they'll pick out the real big writers and directors to be able to direct each of the 8 episodes for the Defenders. I think that's hopefully the way they're going to go.
And that will be probably some of the most controversial writing and directing announcements ever made in a Marvel TV show, because we're all going to either love it or hate it, potentially love and hate.
Yes, exactly.
Because I think when you put it as controversial is probably the best way. Some of us loved Sin Min, some of us were lukewarm, and then some had issues. But overall, I love his stuff in Billions, so he's a fantastic director. I want to see what he did here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, John, do you want to tell us what Scott Buck and John Dahl gave us with your synopsis for the first episode of Iron Fist?
Sure. A sloppily dressed 20-something tries to gain entry to Rand Enterprises to meet with the former CEO, Harold Meacham. The man claims to be Daniel Rand, the heir to the Rand family fortune, thought to have died in a plane crash with his parents 10 years previously. Danny battles hard to get the attention of Ward and Joy Meacham, his former childhood friends, to tell them he's made it back from the expedition. But Ward believes he is an imposter looking to undermine the Meachams ahead of a corporate expansion. The former billionaire, Danny, is left alone to fend for himself in New York. Sleeping and practicing his martial arts in Central Park, he encounters Big Al, another homeless man with a possible connection to a mystical hawk and Colleen Wing, a down-on-her-luck martial arts instructor trying to make ends meet. Both Big Al and Colleen realize there is something special about Danny, but only when he has an impossible escape from a killer New York taxi does Joy Meacham start to believe Daniel's story. Unfortunately, under the guidance of Harold Meacham, who was also thought dead, Ward and Joy create a trap that Danny can't escape from.
I wrote part of this synopsis, and I'm trying to work out the killer taxi cab sounds very different from what I meant in that. It wasn't a taxi cab, it was the taxi driver in the taxi cab is what I meant, right?
Absolutely. It's
well, actually, it depends on what way, whether you want to think that the cars or the automobile is in the wrong, or is it the human element in the wrong. Think about it.
Yeah.
When AI cars come, who is to blame? The programmer or the car?
I like it.
Conundrums. Moral conundrums.
Or is it imbued with some kind of spirit, mystical spirit, some evil mystical spirit that is now causing the bonnet to lift up and chomp away like a pair of jaws, just like in Evil Dead?
The possessed.
The Necronomicon.
Yeah.
As I say, I can't even pronounce that. Necronomicon.
The Necronomicon.
The Necronomicon.
There we go.
Comic-Con.
Right, enough about possessed cars. Since we didn't say it up front, I'll probably actually drop this in again up front. This is a spoiler-filled review of Netflix.
Big time.
Iron Fist. So we'll probably re-record that, pop it into the start. We will be talking about everything to do with this episode. We did see some previews that were pretty spoilery before the episode is launched, but hopefully you've now watched the episode and are fully caught up on what's happening on this episode.
But a quick question. Do you think we will spoil people's enjoyment of it after this review? Interesting. Controversial. See, controversy stalks this podcast like a tall, stalky thing.
It does.
A stalk.
Well, we're here to talk about our opinions. I suppose there are 13 episodes and we will be here for all 13 of them. So
that is true.
Yeah, hopefully there'll be some good and bad as always throughout the episodes. But we are definitely here to share our opinions, and hopefully the listeners join us throughout those 13 episodes. Quick one. Obviously, we've got a brand new series here, so therefore we have brand new opening titles and a brand new theme tune. Chris, what did you think of the opening titles for this episode?
I'm torn.
Okay.
Visually, it was stunning. Visually, it is very stunning in terms of the flow of the outline silhouette of what we assume is Danny. It almost brought me akin to the first time we saw good old Dee with the blood dripping all over the New York's landscape.
Yeah.
I thought that was fantastic. And there's elements there. The theme itself... It's not as, best way of putting it is attention grabbing almost. Okay. The very kind of classical Eastern theme that's there, overlaid with obviously a more modern twist. There's a slight juxtaposition there. I don't know how. It's not one that I'm going to be listening to on my way to work consistently, right, like I've listened to some of the others. But I'm not quite sure. I think visually it's stunning, audibly potentially forgetful. Maybe it'll grow on me more and more throughout as we listen. But what did you guys think?
I have to say, on the theme tune, by the second time I watched it for this review discussion that we were having, I've been humming it ever since. So I think the theme tune definitely caught me. One thing I did like about the credits themselves, I did like that the black movement that's going on. It does really feel like kind of traditional Chinese writing. The brush stroke writing.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so while he's doing martial arts moves, it does feel like he's writing something in the titles.
Yeah, and it kind of looks like a brush stroke as well, with from the hands and the feet, which is kind of interesting, definitely. Yeah. I really liked the opening titles, I have to say. The only thing, and I think it just sets it apart from the other three, and I suppose this is going to be inevitable I suppose for every one of these, Jessica Jones was compared to Daredevil, Luke Cage to Jessica Jones and Daredevil, and now we have the fourth Defender arriving in the form of Iron Fist, and of course I suppose it's inevitable that there will be comparisons then to now Luke Cage, Jessica Jones and Daredevil. So the thing I kind of really thought was just how it didn't really have that much colour. Like, Daredevil absolutely embraced the red, obviously. I mean, it was dripping all over the place.
Yeah.
You had the really strong hints of purple for the Jessica Jones opening titles, and obviously that kind of almost sepia yellow color running through the Luke Cage ones. And so I must say I was expecting a bit more green and a bit more yellow to the opening titles. I definitely there was some kind of like yellow sparks coming off some of the moves.
Yeah.
And there was a kind of a very pale background green coming from some of the moves as well. I just wish they had maybe just lifted that slightly, but I did like it, and I like that idea. But maybe it will evolve during, I don't know whether, are we going to see an evolution where it becomes greener or more yellow? It was an interesting choice to have the black. It was very muted, and I don't mind that, but it certainly looked different because of that lack of colour, compared to the other three, which I think really embraced the colours of their characters in that sense.
So, John, answer me this. There was a variant costume for Danny where he was black and yellow. So the symbol and the hood was yellow and the rest of it was black. Am I imagining that? Because I know there's the white one and there's obviously the green one.
Yeah.
But there was a black variant in something. I just can't remember.
I think there was, but I suppose in that sense, if they're taking from that's I suppose then okay. But I mean then with Daredevil, he started off in black and moved to the red. I mean, I suppose the well-known one would be obviously the green and yellow, or the green and gold, and I mean, they do have hints of colour. I really like the opening titles. This sounds like I really didn't or something, but I think they could have just brought a bit more colour to it. That's all. But I actually, when Derek kind of said it was like the traditional Chinese writing, then I kind of thought, well, okay, if it's that, then that makes sense that it would be in black. In terms of that brushstroke. So, but I did really enjoy the opening titles. I have to say, I loved the move from the mountainous area at the start, and as you move through, and the kung fu motions or the tai chi motions that the character is doing is suddenly then transposed from that mountainous into New York. That, again, symbolizing that journey, I suppose, of Danny Rand back to his home in New York. So I really like that little move, I have to say. And of course, obviously, just having the symbol there at the end is fantastic. And I like the background music as well.
Yeah, I think definitely good to talk about the titles, because we generally don't talk about them for the rest of the series. So good to have an opinion on them and to begin. If it does change over the episodes that we're talking about, guys, make sure you mention it on the podcast. But what you're saying, Chris, basically is the visuals you really liked, but the music doesn't have a patch on our new theme tune by Mississippi McDonald. That's what you're saying. Oh,
of course. Basically, yeah. I think I'm slightly biased, but overall, let's wait. I've only had one view through. So maybe on my second view through, before I'm thinking of doing a view through one of number one again, or rewatch number one, then go back into number two just before our next podcast.
Absolutely.
So I think with that, we can start moving on to our top five. So for our first point, really, it's Rand returns with painful headaches and possibly PTSD going on. What did you guys think of his return, and certainly how the flashbacks were done, and I suppose how you felt Finn Jones ultimately sort of settled into this character. Chris, what were your thoughts?
So I'm gonna the PTSD was mine, and I think that's where we're gonna end up getting a broken character. So I think potentially with the comic books, and now again some of the Immortal Iron Fist, which was a bit darker, kind of showed more of the human element of Danny Rand. I think that's where they're trying to go, because these headaches and then the beautiful visuals where it was almost just like cutting over with white. You could see him, the heavy breathing and the kind of the migraines. I think what they're going to play with is that this was such a traumatic experience. Any reminders he has to battle through and learn to deal with, and that will be his that will be his challenge, his mountain outside of the Meachums and the actual villains. The unknown villain or the unseen villain will be his kind of traumatic experience that he has kind of probably bottled up or forgotten. He makes a line which is, "I don't remember much," when he's in the car with the young Meachum. And that kind of started me down this path of, okay, maybe he's suppressing a lot. Maybe that will be the first arc of the series where he is trying to understand and come to terms with something he's potentially buried for years.
Yeah, I think it's something that you mentioned on the 101 podcast, Chris, just that we would be seeing flashbacks throughout the series. It's the only way you can really tell some of the story. Obviously it was expected, but you were really hopeful that we'd see something different than just a flashback episode or something different here. It really feels like the way they've done those particular shots, it feels like he's reliving it more than having a flashback or having a memory of something. It feels like he's going through the pain of what happened to him at the time. That's a great touch by the director.
Yeah, it definitely gave that sense of that he was reliving those moments in his own mind because of the kind of pale yellow aura and the lines that kind of came around his body at that moment where you go back into that. And I really liked the way Finn Jones did the intensity of that. Like it looks like it's troubling him. It looks like it's something he's not able to control.
Yeah.
And that I thought was really, really good, that it was that slight subtlety in rather than doing the flashback, but it was a reliving, and that would like connect in, Chris, absolutely with this idea of yours of the PTSD as well. So I think that's a really good way of doing it as well, and I like the contrast it does then with obviously the more relaxed Danny, because in terms of him doing his Tai Chi in the park and this idea of his meditation, that despite the control that brings, and the centering that it is to achieve, that he has also, something that he is trying to control, not only just with the Chi, but he's trying to deal with and find answers of this really traumatic moment.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that was really cool. I have to say I really enjoyed Finn Jones in this role. I mean, I thought it was really, really good.
I can't agree with you more.
Yeah.
First of all, he's a namesake, so he's another Jones. I love him just for that.
You've had a Jessica Jones and a Finn Jones now as an actor.
I know, it's great.
So, yeah.
Literally, they just need to bring me in, I don't know, and as marketing, and then they've got the whole lot. It's great. All the Joneses, or the Jones Eye, depending on how you want to bring it together.
Yeah. Keeping up with the Joneses, indeed.
I was slightly skeptical. Skeptical's wrong. What's something between eager and wary? Somewhere in the middle.
Tempered.
I was tempered about the casting, because I've seen him in Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was excited for him to play Danny Rand.
But his role there was very one-sided, and I wasn't to a degree. Obviously, he had the duel, and I don't want to give away spoilers for people on a show that we don't really talk about. But he was good, and to a degree, I forgot about his character as the season progressed and left. I was like, oh yeah, who he's, when I see him again, I'm like, oh yeah, that's him, and he was doing X. For this whole episode, I literally grew more towards excited to see what else this actor can bring to this character. He has that mischievous smirk almost, when he's doing some of the kind of more boyish Danny Rand, Iron Fist kind of things. And then he also has that agony, and he, as you said, as an actor, he brought to life that potential kind of duality of the fear and the pain, but also that boyish kind of smirks. And I think that was great. I'm completely relieved with the casting. I'm on board with it, and I just want to see more of what he can do.
I think he plays that wide-eyed innocence really well. This is a kid that left New York when he was about 10 years old. It's 15 years later. He hasn't seen a city like New York since he was 10. So, I think he's playing that idea of the memories of what New York was like are obviously very different than they are now. So he plays that very well. Definitely, I can definitely see that. And as a body type, as a very kind of lithe body type, it really does feel like that kind of Bruce Lee, very skinny kind of fighter. That's a lot of power underneath what essentially is not a very muscly kind of guy. I think Finn is quite good at that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think you can see the hints of where he will become mischievous. I love the interaction that he has with Colleen Wing in her club, her martial arts club. And when she asks him, where was he trained? And he goes, Kunlun, and it's just the way he delivers that. It's kind of like he's slightly embarrassed to say it because he's like, you're not going to know where that is at all, because nobody does. And it's like he's trying to just repress, a smirk, and I really like that kind of, just that whole tone of that little brief interaction.
Yeah.
And certainly I think as well where he's on the sofa in, Joy Meacham's office and he's kind of hugging the cushion. I think it's just that idea, as you say, that, in many respects, all of this is memories of his childhood.
Yeah.
I mean, he talks about this was my second home. He's looking at it all through that lens of being a child, and
Absolutely.
I think that's really interesting.
Absolutely, and that's like he's just won a game of hide and seek or something. It's like you can't find me, but I found my way around this entire building. It's a nice little cheeky moment, definitely. But to go on to our second point, because it is obviously connected to the first point, it's kind of the big first fight sequence in the show, the fight at Rand Enterprises between Danny and all the security guards that are in there. I think this kind of shows what Finn Jones is capable of in the role. He's obviously doing a lot of the fight sequences that are in there. I know he does have a stunt double as well, obviously, for some of those moves. But it's a very cheeky kind of fight. It's different to what we've seen on Daredevil before. He's doing a lot of very quick moves in order to take the guards out and lock them behind the glass door, which I thought was good fun. And then the wonderful moment where he's throwing one guard away and kicks the lift button to open the door at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
I know it's very difficult to talk about action sequences on the podcast, but I did really enjoy this moment. It felt like, it did feel like, as you mentioned on the 101 podcast, John, it felt like that kind of Tai Chi sped up. It felt like the dance.
Yeah,
using his body movement to take out much stronger, much more powerful people.
It's a lot lighter compared to Daredevil. Daredevil is a much more brutish kind of fighting style.
He's a boxer.
It's much lighter. He's much soberer than Jessica Jones's form of fighting, and he's got less anger than say Luke Cage has. Luke Cage has a bit of fury in him, I think. And of course is really kind of, again, boxing and street level sort of survival kind of fighting. And this is definitely lighter. And you can see it move from, again, the meditation and the slow Tai Chi movements in the park, and you see it being sped up there. And I really enjoyed him tapping the call button for the elevator. I thought that was a nice little touch. And yeah, I mean, I really thought it was good, and even I think with some of the other fights, I loved how when is it the security guards again come after him after he's been to Colleen Wings, Shannon, that's it, and he he runs away and he just skips up like a really tall wall down one of the alleyways, and one of the other guards is chasing after him, and I actually just loved the idea. Then he kind of looks up and it's like, okay, how do I get up this? Whereas for Danny Rand, it's like a hop, skip and a jump.
Yeah.
Even getting into his old house, I absolutely loved the way he kind of floated up to the first or second floor of that. And I was also thinking, ow, when he uses the spike of the railings around the house to kind of like lift off up the side of the house. That's kind of like, that was visually like stubbing my toe, on the side of a table. I thought that was really cool, that lightness to the fighting.
I definitely agree with you on particularly on that scene, because that's kind of the first time we see his powers as such. The rest of them seem like they are just martial arts skills. That scene where he jumps and gets into the apartment, it feels almost preternatural, I guess you'd call it. It's kind of sort of supernatural, but not unbelievable. A really well shot scene again. I think it's David Armstrong that did all those kind of moves for him. Really good job. So it's slightly sped up. It feels slightly unlike a human, but it doesn't feel unrealistic, which is a difficult balance to do on a show, on a TV show.
Yeah, and I think from in my opinion, this fight style and potentially that scene in general, it's all going to be about precision and agility. Mm-hmm. So when he was in that first fight at Randcorp, he was so precise that he wasn't completely hurting them. He was just kind of disarming them and moving them out of his way with those kind of sweeps lefts and then those kind of holds in such a way. Like, what I want to see is when we're going to get fights later on, probably in episode 2, episode 3, 4, who knows, where he does potentially lose some of that precision and that control. That's going to be very interesting. And then the agility bit. Okay, so the spike bit annoyed me because I was like, well, hold on. How would he weighs like what, $180? There's no way his foot's not going to get like somewhat jammed in there. I was like, unless he's like been walking barefoot. Well, potentially for like 18 years.
He was walking around New York City barefoot. Do you know how much glass is on the streets of New York?
Do you know how much syringes are on the streets of New York? I was like, dude, like, think of the badness.
I did like the running gag of everybody asking him why doesn't he just buy some shoes? If he thinks he's a billionaire, buy some shoes first.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to give that $2 back to me, how about you buy some shoes? Yeah, nice little running gag.
And then just kind of continuing on in the agility bit. As you said, it was Armstrong who probably his stunt double and stuff. And I think I want to see more of that because of it looks so, as you said, preternatural that it was almost too soon to see it. For me, in other words, if they had like, I don't know. It was like, I think I just want to see more use case of maybe like him using that in a fight. So doing like a flip or something.
Definitely.
If they had done that and then showed him jumping and scaling, I was like, okay, great.
I think this episode needed it, though. I'm sure we'll get on to what our final thoughts about the episode were later on, but I think this episode needed moments like that so you could see something coming up in the future.
Yes,
absolutely. But I think, I must say, I did feel that, we're talking about a fight with Randcorp, and Shannon and the guards there. And, there were other encounters along the way, as well. I kind of, and maybe this is kind of coming to, another point, which is him meeting sort of Colleen Wing. But I kind of felt that it would have been good to have seen those two go head to head in her club, to really get a full kind of idea or range of what he can do up against another person who's proficient and a master who's proficient in these martial arts.
Yeah.
I thought that would have been really good to see. I mean, it's not so much of an issue that I didn't, but I mean, I kind of felt that it was building to that, even just the fact that he comes in and challenges the dojo.
The moment that she rejects the challenge, just my face dropped going, no, don't reject the challenge.
Exactly.
Fight him.
And I was actually thinking, can she? Is there I really need to check this up, obviously, and I'll check it up for the next podcast. But I mean, is there a protocol that is so kind of maybe rigid in that she can't do that? I kind of had that feeling that would be the case, and then it pulled away.
Yeah, I think the joke about it is that shut up, Danny, you're in New York. You don't get to challenge somebody in their dojo as a master. I train people to do martial arts. This isn't the ancient Orient.
But I think that's where it would have been really, really good to have shown that to some extent.
But let's talk about Jessica Henwick as Colleen Wing, because that is one of our other points that we have. I really do like her in this episode. I like how she's just trying to get rid of Danny the whole time. I like that interaction between the two of them. They're very connected characters in the comic book, and we know she's going to form a central part of the show. I do like that there's that kind of interplay with them, that they don't form a friendship straight off the bat. She seems to have money problems in the show. Colleen Wing's character seems to be holding classes all the time to try and keep her head above water. A very simple solution here is she finds out that Danny's a martial artist and gives him some classes to train in her dojo, and then boom, money problem solved, because he could probably sort out some of the problems she's having in the dojo. Is his gag to her about, do you teach kung fu classes? Is that supposed to be that people will come for kung fu but won't come from other martial arts because they know kung fu better? Is that
I think it's. I think so. I think it's the idea that you should do kung fu. It will get more people in. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And certainly, I like their initial encounter in the park. I like that kind of waltz around the billboard where she's like keeps edging round it to get away from him to shut him off, and he just goes the other way. And I mean, I like the fact that it is a bit frosty from her, and she's kind of like, I don't want to get into this. What are you doing? But then I do like the fact that obviously with him being attacked when he leaves her club, that she follows him, but she doesn't help. And I think you said it, Derek, that she was just like watching him, and I thought that was really I liked that. I like the fact that there's all of a sudden her intrigue has been pipped here, and like she kind of goes on the journey. I mean, just that shot of her at the top of that huge wall that Danny's just scaled, and the guy that's been chasing after him.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. I thought that was a really cool shot of her standing on top of the wall with the practice sword, just watching.
Absolutely. Do you remember that Simpsons episode, Chris, where the mob get attacked by some Chinese guys outside Homer's house? And Marge drags him back inside, and he goes, "No, the guy over there in the suit's going to do something cool. I have to see it." That's what Colleen Wing felt like in this episode, where she's got her white samurai sword hanging at her side, looking after Danny, and she's standing on the top of the wall, and you're going, she's got to do something cool in a second. Oh, okay. Maybe next episode.
Yeah, that's what I was like. Oh, she's going to jump. She's going to jump. I was like, superhero landing. Yeah. No. Okay. All right. Okay, maybe not.
But it is funny that you mentioned their initial meeting, John, where she's sticking up the poster for her school, her martial arts school, because that's how we were introduced to Colleen Wing, and the little Easter egg in Luke Cage where Claire Temple picks up the tickets to go to take martial arts or take self-defense courses from Colleen Wing. Was anybody else staring at every single poster on that going, who would be the guy that's training acoustic guitar? Is that another superhero? Does Moon Knight do acoustic guitar at all? No?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder, is that how Claire Temple is going to be introduced? Is that 100%. She will turn up there
100%,
because of that link to Luke Cage? Obviously, is that link into this?
Yeah, she's either taking self-defense courses or she's at the AA meeting after everything.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Thursday night, right?
For me, Colleen, the introduction of Colleen, I liked. It was over very quick, and I think I would have liked more banter there very quickly. But I suppose, I think I'm almost wanting too much too quickly at this point. I think the pacing was correct. The overall banter in the studio was fantastic. That was me seeing Danny at his most boyish grin charm that I liked.
Yeah.
And then her throwing him the shoes, I thought that was great. The chase after, so there was a bit that kind of, I don't know whether I blinked and I missed it, but after the chase, when she's in the crowd staring at him and he turns around and tries to see her, does he not see her, or does he see her?
He doesn't.
He doesn't see
aware.
it.
He's aware there's someone else watching him. I think is because you get a sense that Danny Rand does have an awareness around him. When the other members of that were sent by Ward, the other security guards, were sent by them, you can tell that he's kind of able to sense that they're close a little bit. And
almost like a spidey sense.
Kind of like that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably not as powerful as spidey sense.
A dragon sense.
A dragon sense. Something like that. But you kind of get that feeling that he's noticed that Colleen's around, but she disappears into the crowd before he makes eye contact with her.
Okay. I questioned that. I was like, why would she not go up and see, is he okay? Or what was happening? Or like, well, you just got chased by a load of men and got shots fired at you. What did you... No, nothing like that.
Maybe.
But she may have been like that. I don't know whether I would approach someone who had just been shot at.
Yeah.
That would be
I
like...
suppose, actually...
I
wanna
would
get
be
involved.
putting
In New
myself
York.
in a situation that I wouldn't like.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
think I want to get involved in.
No, actually, to be fair, thinking about that, like, going, yeah, some guy just got shot at in New York, you'd be like, yep, I'm walking away.
Absolutely, yeah, I would be like, okay, I shall just get into the sewer system here just to escape or something, or nip in, up one of the fire escapes up the side of the buildings. But I just want to come back, actually, Chris, on your pacing. That you said you thought the pacing was good. I would agree with you now. We've watched it twice, and actually, the first time watching it, maybe it wasn't so much the pacing, actually. Maybe it wasn't so much the pacing, but obviously this is a very tonally different Marvel Netflix show compared to Daredevil. Certainly, if you think that he's being trained in martial arts, the spirituality and so on of Buddhism, he will not want to kill, for example. That idea of killing his enemies would be pulled back. I mean, in the same way that as Daredevil, but Daredevil doesn't mind. It's not that he wants to kill them, but he certainly doesn't mind beating them to the point of death.
Yeah,
and obviously it's a much bloodier kind of thing.
But he will not kill. That's the big moment for Castle in season 2.
Did feel it was quite pulled back and quite restrained. This first episode, certainly when I watched it the first time, it felt like it was warming up in terms of that pacing being. I felt a little slow in terms of what it did. I thought the returns back to Central Park. I think we saw him there 3 times with Big Al. I thought that I didn't know whether they needed to do that as much. I thought, but then maybe there is something there, obviously, that is bigger than that. And of course, I think we will be coming on to that. But it was only in watching it a second time that actually I connected with the show, and I think that's just coming back to me that the comparison with the previous shows. I think is inevitable, and I did feel it was fairly pulled back, but I liked it,
Don't sell yourself short. I personally felt this seemed like episode 5 or 6 of some of the other shows. It felt like the exposition episode. I know they're trying to set up a new world here. I know this is the Upper East Side of New York. It's all about money. It's all about the 1%ers versus the homeless guy. That's a lot of the storyline that's going on in this episode, but it felt like it didn't have, and sorry about the pun, but it didn't have the punch I would have expected from Iron Fist, the Marvel TV show. It felt like it needed a big moment. Jessica Jones had that big moment right at the end of the episode that kind of stated its claim and said, this is going to be a difficult show to watch. You've just seen a girl shoot her 2 parents in a lift, and I'm about to walk away, but actually I won't. Each of the shows has had a big moment in their first episode that goes, this is who we are, this is what we're here to do. And I felt this episode was more, here are our characters, follow us for episode 2 when you want to know more about the characters. Do you know what I mean?
No, I do.
100%. So, the pacing, I think I was more just kind of, it was good. I won't say great, but it was good.
Yeah, I agree with you now, definitely, yeah. After a second watch, I think the pacing was cool, yeah.
And then I think that they tried to cram so much character into it that it missed that moment. And I think what we're there, I don't know. I got a feeling it was almost like Boston legal. If you kind of get my draft in terms of, it was like, this is all going to be about Rand Corp and Rand Enterprises and the fight in there and the Meachums and, oh no, he stole his business, blah, blah, blah. That was almost, they focused so much on the characters, they forgot about actually setting a full world and giving us that. Here we are planting your flag. You are going to get supernatural. You're going to get chi. You're going to get, like, we'll get to it later, but when Ward went upstairs behind locked doors and stuff, I was like, oh great, we're gonna get the evil potentially hand, we're gonna get Madame Gao, we're gonna get, like, straight away. And then they had another reveal, but it wasn't as I wanted.
Yeah, I think we should get into that.
Yeah, I think we should get into that in terms of our fourth point, definitely in terms of Meet the Meachums. Right. I completely agree with you on that, Chris. I think that if you, like, I actually thought David Wenham was really cool as Harold Meachum. Actually, I really liked him. I loved how he treated Ward. And I'm not surprised he did. Wouldn't we all want to treat Ward like an absolute dick? To be honest, what did they say? He was a dick as a kid and a dick now. I mean, he's played really well as that nasty douchebag. Really,
definitely.
I really enjoyed the character because he's played so obnoxiously, and I really like David Wenham in terms of his treatment, and you can kind of see why Ward is like he is. But I kind of felt that, well, we knew he wasn't dead because, like, and that's the thing, the reveal wasn't really a reveal because we knew David Wenham was Harold Meachum in the show. He was being touted as being dead, yet we've seen him in the trailer. And if you think of how they kept Vincent D'Onofrio secret for the second season of Daredevil, and some of the other withholds that the Marvel Netflix have done, I just feel that, I almost wish they hadn't even advertised or marketed the fact that David Wenham was in it.
Yeah, the character really doesn't matter to fans of the comic books. Nobody really knows Harold Meachum that much. They kind of know him, but it doesn't matter if you've created Ward and Joy Meachum as the two characters who are the protagonists of the show, and to have that reveal that he's dead at the beginning because it's a newspaper article that Danny reads. And then to have it revealed 10 minutes later, oh no, he's not dead. It felt like, okay, that's that.
You didn't need the reveal that he was dead and then that he wasn't.
He could have said nothing and just have Ward go to Harold Meachum's house and meet him.
Yeah.
I'm presuming one of the things that I did think that came out of it when we were just watching the episodes, it does feel like Joy Meachum, the daughter, doesn't realise that Harold's alive.
Absolutely.
There's something about her interactions with Danny that she seems to think that Harold is dead. Maybe Ward's the only one that knows.
No, absolutely. I really want to see how that plays out because Ward and Joy, they seem like they're quite close as two siblings. Yet the flashback to them on top of the roof, you realise that teenager Ward was being nasty to the young Danny.
Yeah.
She's the one that is doubting the word of her brother to some extent, or maybe she's not, because ultimately she does act against Danny by drugging him later on. But she seems the one that is the most accessible for the audience in terms of normality. And I do think that kind of revelation to it, if potentially we're going to get that her dad is not dead, I think is going to be really interesting. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how that plays out. Absolutely.
Yeah, as I said, the reveal was like, "Aw," and I think that's the best way of putting it. My heart kind of went, like, okay, cool. I can kind of guess. There is some comic book precedence as to Harold Meachum and the importance he plays. I'm not going to get into it.
Absolutely, Chris. And I know we did talk about it in the 101. Sorry, I did think when I was saying that earlier on that that might come across incorrectly. What I meant was, I know he has a huge part to play in the comic books because I'm definitely aware of that storyline.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about it because I think it will spoil the later parts of the show. I don't think they set it up correctly in the show to have any relevance to an audience who's watching for the first time.
Exactly, and that is my problem with this.
Yeah.
My problem with the Meacham, I've problems with the whole Meacham element of this show so far.
Okay.
Joy's character was like, they set her up for, well, first I'm gonna go through Joy first. Joy's character was set up as the doubting sister that kind of she seemed a bit more, oh, maybe it is Danny, she was softer, and then she got harder, and basically by the end of the first episode, her standing over Danny, I was like, well, maybe, okay, no, they've just tried to sell her to me as this more soulful character who's potentially open to helping Danny and talking to Danny. Oh, no, she's just another bad guy.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think they're selling her as the opposite of Ward. I think there's a loyalty there to him as the brother, and I suppose I know what you mean. I think she's the most accessible. She's obviously the doubting Thomas kind of, she is questioning it, but then also I think she is kind of with her brother. So I think she's still possibly good, and she'll be the first to accept Danny, but I think it will take time.
Yeah.
Because he also did break into her house, which would freak probably anyone out in that
That's
sense.
potentially true.
Yeah. No, I think Ward does make a very good point. If they are going through a business expansion and someone's coming in to undermine the business, that's a very good point. That'll turn you around pretty quickly from thinking this blonde-haired person is the same blonde-haired person that I thought died 15 years ago. Like, if you put that in context, if you've had a funeral and you're now living in the house of someone that you think is dead and you are running their business for 15 years, you're probably not going to jump to the conclusion that this person is telling the truth when they pop up on your doorstep and can't prove anything at all. So I think a person like Joy is probably very willing to accept that Danny's not telling the truth to her. So any opportunity or any explanation given to her will make her change back her opinion. So while he may know a few things, he doesn't tell her anything particularly, as she says, that he couldn't find out on the internet. He was about to, and then said, "I broke into your house," basically, which probably didn't set him in the right standing with her.
Yeah. So then getting on to Ward. So
the second evil Ward in the Marvel Cinematic Universe after Grant,
which is great.
In Agents of
and
S.H.I.E.L.D.
he is very much second place in my opinion right now.
Absolutely.
They purposely went out of their way to show how much of a dick he is. To the point it was like, okay, we get it. We understand. And I want to basically he's a one-dimensional character. Like, he literally is a dick who is subservient to his father. Yeah. That is the he's commanding and all that. There's no depth to his character right now, and that is a potential worry for me. But I know, again, it's the first hour. It's going to be fine. The actor who plays Ward is fantastic. I've seen him in other shows, and I think he's going to be able to do it.
Tom Pelford.
Then finalizing up on Harold, just the portrayal was great. The reveal wasn't necessary at this early.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless Harold is now the Cottonmouth and Gao is the Diamondback.
No,
that's how we're going to get it.
I'm not.
Unless they're literally setting it that way.
I hope they don't do it like that, and I don't think they will. Well, maybe they will. I don't know, but I hope they don't do it like that, because I mean, certainly in the trailer there is that moment where, okay, she's ultimately in control by the looks of it. She's giving him instruction, but whether, hopefully we see that. At least we are going to see them working together, which we never saw that with Cottonmouth and Diamondback really in any great amount. And I hope they don't kind of do that two-parter like they did with Luke Cage. I'm not entirely sure that they will. I completely agree that I don't think... I think you could have left Ward on the phone call in his office. he didn't need to go over or we didn't need to see him go over there. You just needed to see him getting direction from someone external. And it would have kept Harold Meacham in the background still. As you say, we didn't need to see him.
Maybe just added a little more depth to the storyline that he's supposed to be dead for 10 years.
And then, even like the how they introduced Kingpin so late in Daredevil in the first season, keeping that back, that shadowy figure, because we could have just thought it was Madame Gao from the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Even though, as well, I suppose we had seen him in the trailer. And again, that's why I think they should have just been a little less liberal with how they had used David Wenham in this, and I think in the trailers. Leave his role a bit more of a mystery, whereas it's kind of been put there on a plate really early on, and maybe that's fine. Maybe this is, needs to be done like that, because the way the story is going to evolve is going to be, much quicker through to Madame Gao, Steel Serpent, drugs, and this impending, threat to New York City.
I kind of, to wrap this point, because I kind of want to go on to spend one more piece to our final point, but I wonder if the pacing and everything about this show was done because, and we mentioned this on the 101, could this be because Iron Fist is potentially the least known character to everyone, in that, like, it's the Asian connection, it's the dragon, it's the Iron Fist. Like, people probably wouldn't have known who he was initially. So I think they need to get, this was almost like, this is what you're going to get, like, throw everything at you and trying to get in one episode.
I wish that's what they were doing, Chris, and that's kind of my point. I promise we'll save some of this for a wrap up, but kind of my point about the episode was I wish that they had thrown everything at the screen and shown you what you were going to get in the series. At the moment, this feels like we've got a guy with martial arts who's in a courtroom drama, as you said, or in a business drama, and that's kind of all we got. We didn't get everything on the screen about, well, there's a dragon and there's an ancient city coming along.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That if they'd thrown all of that stuff in there in the episode, and that's of course a very difficult balance to do.
Absolutely, and I think the idea of having the fight with Colleen and maybe having him then, chased from there by these three assailants, and you don't really introduce Harold Meacham, but you see his hand glow or something like that. Even with Danny versus the doggy, when he was doing the chi thing, I kind of thought, wouldn't it have been nice, because you've got both his hands, the camera's focused on both his hands, that not a wild, violent glow like when he's really, using it to punch and as a ranging kind of weapon, but that there was some kind of aura coming from it. So you get that hint, because that is what he's about, and that would have said, this is Iron Fist, and maybe then right at the end you see that real that glow of his fist as he's combating the three security guards, and that would have been its punch. Pardon the pun. We're going to be saying that so much.
We will. It's better than some of the other puns we could have used.
Exactly.
But the other thing I'm wondering, perhaps, we have had resurrection in Daredevil of one of the major characters connected with Madame Gao and connected with the Hand. Possibly the reason why we have this early introduction of Harold, and the reason he's been in hiding for over 10 years, they say, is potentially he did die of cancer. That would be intriguing. That would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be a good one. And maybe...
And now he's indebted to Madame Gao because she brought him back.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Okay, if that is that or something similar is the actual twist, I will forgive all sins, because then that is
I won't forgive all sins for them.
Not all sins, but most sins.
Yeah.
But like that's almost very much a magician. Look at my left hand, my right hand. Don't look at my right hand. Look at my left hand, and then there we go.
Exactly.
That would be good.
So that is my prediction that will be proven wrong next episode. And we need to have one for this episode. Guys, you want to move on to our fifth point where we have a small point, really, but it's an interesting one. The Central Park recentering of Danny Rand, as he seems to go back and he's in probably the biggest green environment in most of New York, isn't it? Central Park. It's a really green environment, really nature environment. And that's where he keeps going back to recenter himself throughout the episode.
Not naturist.
Not naturist, no.
That's something different.
Yeah. Although very late night in Central Park.
I was wondering if that was going to be a problem with where they had set camp. But anyway.
So for me on this, I understood it the first time.
Mm-hmm.
The second time, I was like, okay. And third time was just a beat on the head. We get introduced to Al. And I like this. Big Al. I was like, oh, brilliant. This is going to be the character. He's going to be the centering for Danny. He'll be the Foggy to Danny to a degree.
Yeah.
That's where I thought it was going.
Or the Hogarth, yeah.
Or the Hogarth. But no. They completely... Like, that character had, aside from giving him access to a phone, but why a homeless guy has access to an iPhone and data...
Oh, no, he said he stole it. I love that moment where he goes, do you want to search up anything on the internet? Until the person who I stole it from finds out and cancels the data. Good little joke.
Okay, I missed that part.
Yeah.
But I don't think that character was needed except for that one part, and his death was unimpactful to me.
Yeah.
It was just like, meh, okay, shame.
I know, I felt really bad because I was watching him thinking, like yourself, this is going to become a major character. This is going to be where Danny comes back. This guy minds his stuff while Danny's off doing the other things in the city he needs to do. And yeah, it's got some great little lines there, a little gag about, I have the internet on my phone. I found my sister. She's still a bitch. Nice little gags from him. And I thought there was some good interplay between the two characters. I thought there was more about him as well. He was talking about historically humans didn't work. They were hunters and gatherers, and then money was developed and they went into businesses and they went into buildings. Not me. I've kept that. And I was going, is he saying he's 10,000 years old here? Is he saying there's some big history for him? And then it's like, no, he's a junkie.
Yeah, but then with the tattoo with the eagle then as well, that connection there. So, yeah, I mean, I presume he is dead. And I mean, actually...
But there will be something more about him, though.
Yeah, but if he is as well, if he's dead and gone, I mean, I completely agree with you, Chris. Like, going back so often to the park, to that little center of Central Park, and those interactions with him just felt then a bit unnecessary. That we didn't need 4 scenes with him, 4 or 5 scenes with him where and that interaction. Maybe 1 and you just leave it at that. But I mean, obviously that tattoo has got some significance to Danny channeling his kind of focus and chi into the eagle.
Oh, I didn't get that. I just thought it was like he looked at it. I thought it was going to be like it was just a tattoo.
Well, it could be, and that's the thing. If we don't see him back, then actually that would make that scene even. It would make it even less sense.
Or somebody else with the tattoo. That's my feeling. Either that or
it's a cult or another kind of order of something.
It feels like Danny obviously is hiding quite a big tattoo at the moment.
Yes.
And the reason why he would particularly pick out the hawk tattoo or the bird tattoo is because he knows somebody else who has that tattoo. So if that's connected to the other heavenly cities or something like that, we'll probably find it out later in further episodes. But I do think there was a connection there. I do think there was a reason for Big Al to be there. I just felt in this episode maybe it was too much or shown too often.
And the other really interesting thing is that he does make the reference to Bleecker Street, and when he hands over the deli sandwich to Danny Rand. So, little Doctor Strange Easter egg there, Bleecker Street.
That's where Doctor Strange lives. That's where the Sanctum Sanctorum is.
That's where the Sanctum is.
In case you didn't join us for the Summer of Strange podcasts. But yeah.
And if you haven't, you need to go back because John was just happy for our entire summer.
I was so
It was
happy.
fantastic.
But that's a little Easter egg. That's one that I spotted there.
Yeah, I picked up a terrible Easter egg, which is that when Danny is talking about something strange happening and they need to have a discussion about it, he goes to have some tea with the Meachams. That's what he wants to have happen, and that's exactly what the Ancient One tries to do with Doctor Strange when he comes around to her house and wants to explain something strange. Gives him a bit of tea. Terrible Easter eggs in this first episode.
Yes. So Central Park. So for me, if that tattoo doesn't pan out, then yes, that was completely unnecessary. Unless it's like a heavenly body, one of the heavenly cities, and it's a different tattoo, and it's a cult or an order, and unless that guy is from one of the cities, and when he was speaking about the 10,000 years, it actually is, it makes sense. He's been around for 10,000 years because he's disappearing off into one. Then fantastic. If not, I'm like, that was useless.
Yeah.
But that brings us on to the Hawk. So I had a massive problem with this because I did not know Iron Fist had a certain connection power. So when we see a hawk flying above the skyline and him meditating in I was like, you what?
Yeah.
I was like, is he seeing through the eyes of the hawk? What? Because it didn't explain it.
I know, it was reminding me of Marshall Bravestar, an old 90s or 80s cartoon character who had the eyes of a hawk and could see through the eyes of a hawk. Now that I'm thinking about it, now that you're saying it, I had exactly the same issue that you had, Chris, as well while watching the episode. But I'm wondering if it was just kind of metaphorical. It was just saying that he was able to become one with the animals, become one with nature kind of thing, because he wasn't using the hawk to go and spy on anybody. You know, that would have completely taken me out of it. And it kind of did at the time. It took me out of it a little bit. But if he was using the hawk to spy on somebody by communing with it, that's a very different thing than just his relaxation techniques being like flying over the city, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I did think it was a bit weird.
Yeah, it just did not sit with me. Yeah, it just, that took me out of it enough that I was like, what? It was almost like that sound internally, mentally in my head. It just went, half of my brain just went, nope, we're out of here, we're done, bye. Overall, it was, I don't see the significance unless that becomes his sanctuary and he stays in Central Park, so he's part of that green, part of that nature, then it is a wasted time. No, two scenes are wasted. Completely. So, guys, I think that's our 5 points, and I think we all have a few notes. So, do we want to just kind of go through some of our notes?
Yeah, definitely. We have Doggy Danny facing his doggy double in his old house.
If you have not been with us over on our Facebook group, this may be difficult to explain.
It may be difficult to understand, but there is a suggestion that with his raggedy hair and his big bushy beard, and certainly one of the trailer scenes where the axe or some kind of weapon flies past him and he looks at it and whizzes past it as it flies past him, that there's a little cute fluffy doggy there in Danny Rand, and here we have him facing his doggy double in terms of I think it was a Rottweiler, and he's able to commune with the dog. And I mean, I think that's kind of similar then with the Hawk, that maybe he's, you know, using the chi, using that power to control, get inside, and impose his will on this dog. And the
so
dog,
I'm one with the chi. The chi is with me. Is that?
Maybe, possibly. And so, I really like this little face off with Danny Rand and the dog.
So I will have to say to Rebecca and Claire from Defenders Podcast, and Rebecca from our group, because of their discussions for the last 3.5 months, when this scene came up in the first episode of Iron Fist, I couldn't stop laughing. The idea that they've included a scene of Doggy Rand communing with another dog made me laugh. So that one for you guys. Most of our other listeners will have no idea why we find it hilarious.
No, but I think maybe we should put up that little GIF onto the Facebook group.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We briefly discussed it in our 101. Every title is a martial arts move. And we were looking up this one. So the title of this episode is Snow Gives Way. It seems it is a move from the Shaolin Kung Fu.
Right.
And I tried to look it up. If Google Images is correct, then it is a move where you're down with one leg stretched out, one down kind of like you're doing a lunge with your knee close, and one arm kind of extended out to the side, palm down, and the other forward with like an almost come at me man kind of move.
Okay.
I don't remember him doing this in the actually in the episode, so I'm a bit like maybe it's not the right move.
Unless that was the move he was doing in the park when he sees Colleen Wing. Was that maybe it?
Potentially,
but I don't know.
No, I really
One of us
don't.
needs to go and learn Kung Fu, boys.
In the next couple of weeks,
Yes.
we need to become Shaolin masters. But hopefully, our listeners could help with this. This is where we want. We want to kind of put almost a note. We want to include your notes on this because we'll try our best. But this is kind of out of my wheelhouse to a degree. Whiskey watch and Easter egg hunts. That's kind of fun. We can figure that out. We're pretty good with that. Those one's comic books and the other is alcohol. We're down with those.
We're pretty good.
Kung Fu mastery, not so much.
The only thing I could think of, and I was trying to think, was it like the Luke Cage episodes where the song title is connected with what's going on in the show? Snow Gives Way is, I think the kind of end of that phrase is kind of snow gives way to grass shoots. So this being the opening episode, this is just saying that it's coming into kind of the spring of the story. There's the thrust of the story is going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, okay.
The return of Danny Rand to the city is a brand new change in the lives of a lot of people in the city. So snow is giving way to grass shoots. In a way, that's what I'm guessing. Grass is green. So's Danny Rand's suit. If he gets one. Look, it's a guess.
And
But
little
yes.
puppies love rolling around in the grass. You know?
But yes, Chris is absolutely right, listeners. If you can get in contact with us on the titles of the episodes, some of them are a bit spoilery, I understand. The episode titles on the previews are just 101, 102, 103. So we believe the name of this episode of Snow Gives Way we'll know on Friday at 7 a.m. But if you want to get in contact with us, just email us over at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com if you've worked out what each of the moves could be, and we'll talk about them on the episodes.
Absolutely. So, are there any other notes?
My one for the episode is the music at the beginning of the episode is by Outkast, So Fresh and So Clean. Great track. I actually really do like Outkast. But I like the idea of it. It's the fact that Danny left New York City carrying an iPod 15 years ago. That song was released in the year 2000, 17 years before he released. So that would be absolutely the type of music that Danny would have brought with him on board his plane in his very old school iPod.
Cool.
That'd be cool if they keep that theme kind of like the majority of the music is all 15, 17 years old. That'd be a nice twist.
Yeah, it would be nice, wouldn't it, actually? Yeah.
When music was better.
And, yeah.
And it also would explain why he's more of a rap fan, and that's possibly how he'll have a bit of a connection with Luke.
And speaking of twists, Chris, the taxi flip, I really liked that as well, right in front of Joy Meacham.
How can we not talk about that?
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. That lightning reflexes here, and just the back flip over the taxi to avoid obviously being run over like a dog in the street. So it was that I really, really enjoyed. And actually, I loved the other car scene as well with him and Ward Meacham. I thought that was really cool. Where
oh yeah,
Ward pulls the gun on him. Like I can't believe I've not really said that, actually. I just thought that was, again, just the intensity, the frustration, the anger in Danny Rand, but also it's starting off with, look, I've been quite nice here and everyone's treating me like rubbish. Will you just listen to me? And Ward, the kahunas on him must be massive, because, I mean, he literally says, well, they were on a plane and it crashed, they died, and they were never found again. And it was just like, okay, yeah, I think he wanted more than that. I think he knows that amount. And it just showed how obnoxious Ward was. But I loved the kind of the intensity and the lines coming and the brief flashback as his career in the car. I thought that was really tense, and I loved with the gun as well. I really enjoyed that scene between the two of them, because again, it's the contrast between the two of them.
I definitely thought that scene was really tense, and partly because there is no possible way the car could travel for that long while the flashback was going on. Before he went off the side of the building. I was kind of going, no, it has to stop now. He said, please stop, Danny, like 3 times.
But I mean that.
But the scene itself was fantastic.
But I mean, that's ultimately that Star Wars, the Rebel base would have got blown up.
It's a huge planetary ship.
As a nerd, I was counting down. We were getting a countdown. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry, Rebellion, but you're over before you started, because actually, the Death Star would have blown up.
Right, I think that's all of our notes, clearly, about the episode. Chris, do you have another one?
For me, I just want to come in very quickly. We used to talk about this back on Daredevil. Colour. The use of actual visual colour in the episode.
Right.
So, actually, there was a lot of yellow. A lot of yellow. When you go back and watch it, it's significant in when Ward's going up the stairs to meet his father.
Yeah, that's true.
It's all yellow. In Chinatown, it's all a lot of the neon is yellow.
Yeah.
So I was surprised. I didn't think they'd do this to the level of Daredevil with the red, but they are. And I'm wondering, is this just a kind of almost I see what I want to see level here? So we'll see if it continues into the next episode and stuff. But it looks like they will be doing that from a visual perspective. But that was one of my notes.
The production designers are fantastic in this show. Lauren Weeks has been involved in all 4 of the TV shows, actually 5 with Daredevil season 2 as well. So he has been involved, and they do, their attention to detail is generally amazing. But I think you actually answered your own question just by the way you put it, Chris. You did say they are all yellow, just like the Coldplay song. That is the reason why the Coldplay song is called that, is because that is a Zen phrase, meaning it's all okay, everything's all right. It is another Zen, phrase, so much more an Eastern phrase, effectively. So,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll look out for that.
And we had another Zen phrase in the episode as well, that those who seek the truth hold no opinions. When he's speaking with Joy, I think it was that anyway. I might be misquoting, but so that was really good. So I think on this point, Chris, do you defend this episode, this first episode, Snow Gives Way, of Iron Fist?
Why did you have to start with me? Why did you have to start with me? Guys, and particularly John, I'm sorry. I do not defend this episode of Iron Fist, The Snow Gives Way. I think this was potentially the weakest of all episode 1s of all the shows we have so far. I don't know whether this was... No, I think I know enough about the character that this should have grabbed me in a lot more than it did. Now, I am not saying this is a bad episode. I'm not saying that. I think there was just more wrong than there was right. And there could be multiple reasons. We've discussed a lot of them already on this episode. But personally, if anything, this was like a 2.75 to nearly a 3 of fists. Like, if you want to put it like that, it's just...
Please don't.
No, okay, I won't put it like that. But it didn't capture me enough it didn't pull me in to go, oh my god, I need to binge. That feeling of bingeness that Netflix is powerful for, that Jessica Jones and Daredevil, it's still Luke Cage, that highlight element. Mm-hmm. Well, Luke Cage to a lesser extent. Like, the ending of this episode just made me go, okay, maybe I can find out next week.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it was like, tune in next week or tune in now. It was tune in next week. And I just felt it just wasn't strong enough. If you put this up against other shows on TV, it's miles better. Not now. There are some shows like Game of Thrones and S.H.I.E.L.D. that are stratosphere ahead, but it is still a good opening premiere to a show, just not a good opening premiere for a Marvel TV Netflix show. They need to do something quite big and quite spectacular in the second episode to get me to go, I'm sorry, I take it back. I see what you were trying to do. And maybe this is almost like a part 1 and a part 2 job, but it's just, no, I do not defend this episode. And I'm sorry, this hurts me more than it hurts our listeners and it hurts John. But John, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist, Snow Gives Way?
I only just defend this episode of Iron Fist. I give it 3 jujus out of 5. For much in the same reason as yourself, Chris. But, I mean, I also feel that this is the first episode. Luke Cage was slowly paced as well. I mean, we made that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't so much have a problem with its pacing, but I definitely feel that there was some kind of factor, and I'm not entirely sure what it is, that just reined back from providing some kind of, whether it be a shock, and I don't mean that they have to kill parents in a lift. I think, you know, this is going to be tonally different. He's a billionaire. He's not an alcoholic. He's not a blind down and out in that sense, struggling with guilt. And is also not someone who's on the run. So he is the contrast of all the defenders in some respects. So I do think he is, and this show is going to be tonally different. I don't have a problem with that either. I just felt that there were certain things that it just felt like they were being restrained. It felt like they were being pulled back, and that it was more than just slow paced. Like they could ultimately have done this first episode in a very different way than focusing on billionaires having a corporate power struggle. And actually, the more I think about it, from our 101, and we were talking about how they were going to introduce this notion of, Xiao the Undying, Kunlun. I actually think they should have just gone for it. Mm-hmm. And I think actually this first episode should not have even been set in New York, maybe to some extent. Or maybe we get the flashbacks, or actually the flash forwards to him arriving in New York and it being really segmented. And actually we get a full-blown, so that it is actually saying to the audience, this is completely different from Jessica Jones, it's completely different from Daredevil, because this guy has been 15 years away from New York. He's no longer from New York. He has been trained in martial arts. He is dealing with the mystic and the spiritual. And when he comes back, he is different from the other three because he's not technically on that street level. In that sense, that is why I have issues with this first episode. However, I loved how Finn Jones's portrayal. I really enjoyed Colleen Wing. I really enjoyed Harold Meacham, seeing him. And the reason why I do just defend it is because it is the first episode, and actually watching it a second time, it was better for me than the first one. The first time I watched it. So I do just defend this. And I'm really interested to see how it moves on. And it doesn't have to be in the next episode. It can be in 3 and 4. I want to see what they're doing with this, because this is so very different as an opener compared to the others. And I think it just didn't have some kind of Marvel, Netflix, but more importantly, Iron Fist factor.
Yeah.
I think the glowing hand would have been great, or the full-on we're in Kunlun and we're seeing that, would actually have told this in a different, more exciting way and acknowledging that difference. But I do defend this episode. Absolutely, there were some really lovely touches in terms of like the foot tap, the climbing up the side of the building to see some of his powers. I really am enjoying Ward Meacham. I think he's just a nasty piece of work. He's an out and out. He might be one dimensional maybe at this stage. He's just nasty. And I like that, because it contrasts, and he should be seen as contrasting with Danny Rand, who's lovely and puppy doggy, and so on. So I do 3 Jujus out of 5. And with that bombshell, Derek, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist?
There are 3 of us. I think it's a threefer. It's all 3 of us are around the 3 out of 5 that we're going to give it a chance, because we're going to be doing all 13 episodes. We always do. There's no issue. There's no problem with the actors in this show at all. There's no problem with the origin story that they have to create. There's loads there in Iron Fist, and they're going to do it over 13 episodes. What I felt about this episode was, have Netflix just dropped the ball a little bit on the idea that they know people binge watch these shows? They have the rights to Marvel. Have they just dropped the ball a little bit by kind of going, it doesn't really matter how good or bad this particular episode is, because people are just waiting that 13 seconds to go on to the second episode? Well, to be honest with you, this feels similar to some of the other shows that I didn't go back to on Netflix. It feels like the OA, which is supposed to be pretty good. I got through 2 episodes of that. It feels like 12 Monkeys, which is supposed to be pretty good. I got through 2 episodes of that as well. It needs to pick up the pace. It needs to do what every other TV show does out there. Just because you got 13 episodes doesn't mean your audience is going to watch all 13 episodes. They need to work harder on an opening episode to get people interested. There are always new people coming online on Netflix, flicking on a TV show and wondering what it's like. This should have been one of those ones that stood out alongside other episodes. If they have to wait 2.5 hours to get to an episode that excites them, they're not going to wait 2.5 hours. They're going to watch a movie. They're going to go to the cinema, or they're going to take out Doctor Strange and watch it again on Blu-ray.
Oh yeah.
You can't wait an hour. This was 56 minutes in this episode, and it felt like we're only just scratching the surface of who some of these characters are. And yeah, you're right, it did feel like an office drama, which isn't really my style and not what I expected from Marvel. So I'm giving it 3 because it's still a wait and see kind of recommendation. That's not a don't watch it. It's a wait and see recommendation. I want to see episode 2, and I'm hoping this picks up in a couple of episodes, because if it stays at this level of storytelling for the rest of the season, I think bad things are afoot. For our 13 hours of podcasting too.
One other thing, if you create the notion that Marvel can do no wrong, which that isn't entirely true either. There's a lot of looking back with rose-tinted specs. Well, to some extent. What I mean by that is that, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is excellent now. I was very iffy on it in the first season.
You were?
I was. But what I mean is that is in its 4th season, and it is fantastic now.
Absolutely.
It absolutely is. But this, as you say, has only 13 episodes to prove itself. It's the first season, and it's the first half of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And if Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had stopped there would have been a potential that it wouldn't be as successful as it did, and has become. So I really hope it picks up the pace, because that is my concern, is that, of course, I'm going to go and watch 13 episodes of it, is because, A, doing this podcast, but B, I'm an Iron Fist fan, and I will probably cry and sob and go, what have they done? But at the same time, look, it's its first episode, and that I think we give it its just desserts.
Okay, so let's not be overly negative. We did find some good things that we enjoyed in the episodes. We're definitely going to be watching episode 2 directly after we record. Of course we are. We're definitely going to be doing that. I hope we haven't come across as super negative on it. It's still 3 out of 5 Jujus, was it, John?
Yeah, it's 3 Jujus.
Or 3 fists.
3 fists.
Right.
And a tear.
So we will be back later on with episode 2 of our podcast, but we want to just do our final piece. We did actually get some feedback in after our Iron Fist 101. We did ask some of our listeners to record their thoughts about our awful pronunciations of things that were in the Iron Fist universe when we were doing our 101. And our first piece of feedback is an audio piece of feedback from Ronaldo, all the way from Australia, who's giving us his thoughts on what we talked about in our Iron Fist 101.
Hi guys, just dropping a line just with regards to pronunciations for all things Iron Fist. First off, as I had read the comics, I always thought it was Kunlun, which I think a lot of people think as well, but as confirmed in the preview on Netflix, you see Danny saying Kunlun. Second, Lee Kung, the Thunderer. I always read it and had it in my head as Lee Kung, so I'm not sure if that's correct or not. And finally, John makes mention of UT. Again, in my head, as I read the comics, I always read it as U-Tai, but that doesn't really make sense if you consider Shang-Chi. He's not exactly Shang-Chi, so UT is probably the best bet there. Just also quickly, on Iron Fist's power sets, he's got a vast range of powers. I'm just wondering how many of those we'll kind of actually see on the show. Apart from the obvious, he's got mind fusion, which I think he can share the consciousness of other people, kind of like Legion, and also using his chi as a ranged weapon. I think might be a bit extravagant for the show, but just wanted your thoughts as to whether you think we will see it on the show. Anyway, keep it up, and can't wait for the show to start. Cheers.
Thanks so much, Ronaldo, and your cats for joining us for that.
Absolutely. They were very vocal too. Absolutely.
Yeah, they were. Much like to Charlie, our podcat, who comes and joins us occasionally. Thanks so much for that. It's really interesting to hear other people's thoughts on our pronunciations as well, because obviously we've read comic books, so whatever you've read a book or a comic book, you read it in your own head, whatever way, until somebody else pronounces it. So always interested to hear those.
Absolutely. I shall endeavour to do better.
Yes, you should.
And also in terms of his powers, I really hope we see the range one, definitely.
Yes.
And I think, in terms of that being able to sort of the mind control type element, I wonder if that's what we saw with the old Eyes of the Hawk.
Exactly where I was going with that. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe he can control animals to a degree, which... that better be it, otherwise that scene was useless. I'm sorry. I love this show. No more again. Anyway, thank you so much, Ronaldo, and appreciate it. And I will try and pronunciate these words, but I will most likely destroy every single one. But anyway, if any of you like the way I pronunciate my words, please send us feedback to going to Defenders TV podcast, and you'll be able to leave a short voicemail for us and you too can pronunciate like I do.
Just to say as well, thank you, Ronaldo, for the feedback as well from my side.
But before we finish up, we have got another piece of feedback.
We do, yes, and it's another voicemail, which is cool, very cool.
So guys, get all your voicemails in, because you too can have your dulcet tones, as John likes to say, on this show.
Yes, we do have a bit of feedback from Claire Payne.
Hello, Defenders. This is Claire Payne from Plymouth in the UK. Thank you so much for your recent podcast covering the 5 points of Iron Fist. I've been doing my own little bit of homework at home before the 17th of March, getting used to understanding this particular Marvel character. As I'm a huge fan of anything to do with dragons and martial arts, then I'm already sold on the idea. The Immortal Iron Fist comic book collection has been a great read, certainly to prepare for the up-and-coming TV series. And also thank you, because your knowledge and enthusiasm in covering all the points has been brilliant, because you really do put across the information really well, and you already feel as though you know the characters and what kind of could happen in the next 13 episodes. So, as always, I'll look forward to listening to your future podcasts. And please, Derek, if you feel the need to dress up as Nick Fury, please do so. But make sure you post some pictures. And thanks again, guys.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you so much for the voicemail, Claire. That's great that you took one of the recommendations to go and read the Immortal Iron Fist collection. It's a brilliant start to the show and a brilliant start to your knowledge. And how perfect is it that you love martial arts and dragons? This is the show for you, clearly, as we go into the episodes, I'm sure.
So the gauntlet has been thrown down, Derek.
Oh.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Claire, for your voicemail. That's really, really cool to get your comments. We hope that we can at least get across our enthusiasm for the Marvel characters that we love, or even the ones that we don't even know that much about as well. So it's really nice of you to say that, it helps. Thank you so much for the comments. Very, very much appreciated.
Claire, I'm going to jump in before Derek says anything. Thank you so much for the comments. But more importantly, thank you so much for laying down that gauntlet and that request. It is the best thing ever. And yes, thank you for your comments. But more importantly, I'm going to pass over to Derek because I want to see what he says. This is going to be brilliant. Thank you, Claire. Thank you.
It's not going to be that brilliant because I have already dressed as Nick Fury, as you both well know.
I
know.
But I wanted
there was a
the
Halloween
updated
party
version.
many, many years ago where I did get the full eye patch on, the full cigar, got my hair dyed grey at the time, even though
he doesn't need the dye anymore.
That is available. I do use it as my profile picture on occasion on Facebook, so I may pop that back up after this episode goes out for a little while, just to refresh everybody's memories of how my trip into cosplaying as Nick Fury turned out. There you go.
Definitely. He did rock an excellent Nick Fury back in 2007. So, in fact, indeed, the wrinkles. He doesn't need to get them put on it now. All the grey hair, and certainly it could be a 10th anniversary dressing up as Nick Fury. I
do remember a great moment when I was about 27. When I was reading a Nick Fury comic, and my brother walked past me and saw the cover of the Nick Fury comic and went, "I know why you like that guy. He's got the same hair as you." I was 20. I was 27 with grey temples. So there you go. Thanks so much for that feedback, Claire. Really good to hear some more audio feedback from our listeners. If you want to record some audio feedback for us, as I said earlier on, just go to the website, go to defenderstvpodcast.com. There's a little button over the side. You can record 90 seconds of your thoughts about each and every episode of Iron Fist, and we'll play it as we go through our coverage of the show. And this is the announcement. There will be a prize at the end of the season. We'll be putting all of the people who have put in their thoughts and their feedback throughout the episodes into a hat. And at the end of the season, we will be especially selecting one person to win a Marvel prize. We know what it is right now, but we're not going to share it just yet. But it is a bloody good Marvel prize, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I have to admit, I kind of want it. I'm kind of like, can I enter? I know there's a bit of like, well, he has to win, but like I put a good 90 seconds worth of effort in there.
It's a really cool prize pack. So absolutely get your feedback skates on and your voicemails in for the prize.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
You can obviously contact us through our website by voicemail. There's also our Facebook page and group that you can join and get involved in the discussions, comments and chats. There's email, obviously, then at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. And I mean, as always, please subscribe, leave a review, leave your thoughts over on iTunes or any other good podcast catcher.
Absolutely. Just one bit of caution as the producer of the show. Please, if you are sending in feedback about any future episodes or your thoughts on the entire series, please make sure you make it very clear in the comment section of your post or in the subject line of your email. I do see everything that comes in. We do not watch ahead on the episodes. We will be watching episode 2 before we record our podcast. And I'd love if you didn't spoil me, if I could ignore an email until we get up to that particular episode. But please send them in as you go. There are going to be some people that will be finished all of these episodes. 13 hours from 7 a.m. That's 10 p.m. Right, 10 p.m. Friday, the 17th of March. There should be some people finishing up.
So, Derek, is that confirmation that you are the all-seeing eye of Sauron in flames?
I do see pretty much everything that comes in from every group, Facebook, Twitter, through our email, through the voicemails. I see it all. So yes,
excellent.
Of the Defenders TV podcast, that would be me, the all-seeing eye. We will be back with our second episode of Iron Fist Season 1, Episode 2, Shadowhawk Takes Flight. So, Shadowhawk, what do you think, guys? That sounds like there's a bit of a connection there between the hawk we saw in this episode and the tattoo.
I think Big Al is going to sprout wings and fly off into the sunset.
I don't think that's
Caw! Absolutely. And again, directed by John Dahl. So, looking forward to that. And of course, remember, as long as the cycle of existence lasts, may your happiness never decline. May you attain the constant joy of the Buddhistas. And with that note, thank you for joining us here on the podcast. Bye for now.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us for the epic first episode discussion. We'll be back for episode 2 soon. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. See you for episode 2.
Bye.
To be brutally honest with you, I will try and pronunciate the words as you said.
Hey, Chris, do you want to take that back for a second? Because the word is pronounce.
I know, that was the joke I was making.
Oh, okay, grand.
Oh, God. Look what I have to work with, people. Anyway.
So, looking forward to that. And as long as the cycle of existence lasts, make your happiness near decline. I can't even read that. Brilliant. I'll read mine. I was like, what the does that say? Little scrawny handwriting.